This video goes through the content of the Planning Your Research Project workshop. This workshop aims to help you understand the purpose of a research assignment and to recognise the structure of that assignment. As we do that, you will understand the purpose of each of the sections of that assignment. We will also think about how you can manage your time to be able to develop a longer project, as well as identifying resources that are going to help you throughout. So it's covering the structure and time management and help and support for this assignment, but it's not going to cover specific skills like how to do a literature review, how to write academically or critically, or how to manage a longer document within Word. There are specific workshops and other resources that will help you develop those skills. So it's likely that this assignment, your research assignment, is your final piece of work on your course, and it brings together everything that you've learnt during your degree, and it's giving you an opportunity to show how it all fits together. It's often called a capstone project because, like the top central block in an arch, like in the diagram here, it's what holds everything together. A dissertation or research project provides a student with an opportunity to do some personalised individual study on a subject area that you will be able to choose yourself. So it's really important to choose a topic that really interests you. This is a large piece of work. You will spend a long time doing it. So make sure that it's something that you're really invested in. It's important to understand the difference between primary and secondary research before you undertake this project. Primary research is when the researcher generates the data themselves. That might be a scientist in a laboratory carrying out experiments and generating the data in that way. Within another field, it might be that questionnaires are asked or interviews are conducted or observations are made, and those results are recorded to generate the data. Secondary research is often known as desk-based research because the researcher is not generating the data themselves, they are reviewing existing data from previous research projects. So a secondary researcher will carry out a literature review or a systematic review, for example. They will look for research that's on the topic of their interest, and they will review that data and bring it all together to come to a robust conclusion about it. It's important to be aware whether you are carrying out primary or secondary research, and it's important to be able to identify whether research you are reading is primary or secondary, so that you can understand the role that it's having in support of your own work. Whether you're doing primary or secondary research will dictate the sections that you will need to write up in your report. It's important to check your assignment brief for information about this, for recommendations of the structure of your assignment, and to follow that as you work through this assignment. Now, the screenshot here is of a tongue-in-cheek research project. It doesn't have all of the correct sections, but it's actually pretty accurate to be able to show you the overall structure of what's required. We're just going to go through what these sections might be, but then in the next slides, we'll be looking at these in more detail. You need a clear title. There should be an abstract summary of the research, an introduction or rationale that provides information for your reader, the aims and objectives of the research, a literature review, the methodology, information about what you did to carry out the research, the results of your research, and then discussion about how that can be applied to your field, to your sector, followed by a conclusion, and then your references. It's a good idea to read published research at this stage, just to have an idea of the kind of structures that are used by research that's been published in journal articles. So get into the habit of sort of looking at the overall research to get an idea of the structure. A reminder as well to always check your assignment brief and follow the instructions that you're given in that. The title page needs to make it really clear what the topic of your research is. You also need to include the date that the report was completed and indicate who wrote it. This may just be your student number so that your work can be anonymised for marking. If relevant, also give information about who it's for. In your case, that will be as an assignment for an assessment for your university course. The abstract is the next thing your reader will see, and this is a summary of everything that's contained within the report. Readers are encouraged to read the abstract so that they can decide if this piece of research is going to help them with what they're looking for. So, as the writer of an abstract, you need to provide enough information for them to have an understanding about what's going to be included in this report, but without giving too much away, without providing all of the details. This piece of the report is written last, so don't worry about starting this straight away. It's presented at the beginning, but you can't write the abstract until you know everything that's been achieved by the whole piece of work. Because this is such a large piece of work, you need a list of contents to enable your reader to be able to navigate it effectively. It's important to be aware that the kind of research you are doing, primary or secondary, will influence the order of your sections and therefore the order of your contents list. It will also influence what you need to include and what you need to say within it. However, this is an example contents list. You will need your title page, your abstract, and the contents list itself, followed by an introduction to your research, the aims and objectives of your research, and you will need a literature review. Even if you're carrying out primary research, you need to review the literature. If you're doing secondary research, your literature review may well be the main part of the piece of research. You need to explain what methodologies you've used, how you carried out this piece of research, what you actually did, what you planned to do. For primary research, that will be explaining what you did to gather the data. If you did secondary research, your methodology will be how you identified the papers you are reviewing. You will need to consider ethical issues around your research. You need to explain what you did, followed by your results and findings before coming to a conclusion and making recommendations. Again, those sections may be in a slightly different order. Some of those may be merged depending on your subject area or the style of research you're doing. All research papers will then need a reference list, and then if you have items that are included as an appendix, that will be right at the end of your assignment. The introduction or rationale sets the scene for your research. It helps your reader to understand the context of your investigation. It gives the background information, it helps them to understand the topic, but also provides them with information about the value of the work that you're doing. It tells them why this is such an important thing to investigate. So think about your reader as you are writing this section. What information are they going to need to know to understand why you're carrying out this research? The aims and objectives are really important. Again, your reader needs to be able to understand why you wanted to carry out this research, what was the purpose of it, and how you were going to achieve that. This is important too because your marker needs to be able to make a judgment about whether your aims and objectives were met. So if they are clearly stated, and then at the end of the project you state clearly whether they were met or not, that will enable them to be able to make that judgment. A literature review is always an important part of the research project. If you are carrying out primary research, you will need a literature review to demonstrate the context of your research against other research that's been carried out in this area. It allows you to show how you're building your research based on previous knowledge, and you can highlight any areas where there may be gaps in the research or where there are things that haven't quite been decided yet. If you're doing secondary research, then this will be the main body of your research, whether it's a literature review or a systematic review, in which case you also need to demonstrate in your methodology which databases you search to find the information, what keywords, etc. We do have a doing a literature review workshop, so that will help you with this section of the assignment. And we also have a literature review guide that's available on the library webpage in the Academic Skills Guide section. It's important to make your reader be aware of what methods you use to carry out the research. You should indicate the paradigm you've used to support your research. This is the type of research that you've used, and explain why you've used it. How have you identified your sample? How did you identify the participants for your questionnaires, for example? Or how have you identified which literature to review? Explain what materials and equipment you've used, if relevant. And you should justify all of these decisions by citing research methodology theory. We have a wide range of books on research methodology that you can access via the library in print and as ebooks, and we would strongly recommend you read widely on this to support this section. Every piece of research that's carried out needs to consider the ethical implications of that investigation. So you'll be likely to have to fill out a University of Staffordshire ethical approval form to make sure that you're meeting all ethical guidelines in relation to that research, and your tutors will talk to you about that in your lectures about this assignment. Include this as one of your appendices. Within your assignment, you need to make your reader aware of any possible ethical issues and then how you overcame them. You need to make it really clear exactly what you did to carry out this investigation, what happened throughout the process, and it needs to be in enough detail that another researcher could replicate that piece of work. When you're writing this up, you are using the passive voice, third person, and the past tense. Your results and findings section will tell your reader what you discovered. You're not interpreting the results here, you're just saying, well, this is what the results were. This may be information in tables that shows the number of results versus the outcome of those results. It might quote questionnaires or interviews with important information. And if it's secondary research, this is where you explain what the papers that you've reviewed have told you about that subject. Your discussion and analysis section is where you can interpret those results and explain why they are important or significant to your field of study. So in this section, you can explore what your investigation has shown, what explanations there are for your findings, are there any theories or models that your findings support, and are there any possible criticisms of this investigation? This bit's really important because no research is perfect, so you need to identify where there might be gaps in your research or where things didn't quite go according to plan. This is so that if this research is repeated, those errors can be corrected. Your discussion also needs to build on the material that you presented previously in your introduction, rationale, and in your literature review. But it also should evaluate how well your research has been carried out. You can suggest any design features that might have affected the results, either positively or negatively. And you can explore whether the results might have been different if they'd been carried out under different conditions. Once you've explored your findings and you've analysed them, you'll be able to make recommendations. It may be that further research needs to be undertaken to fully understand this subject. There might be anomalies or gaps in the data that you've collected. Or you may be recommending specific actions that can be made as a result of this new knowledge. So after you've made these conclusions, you will need to format your reference list correctly using the correct style for your subject area. Because this is your final piece of work as well, this is your opportunity to showcase the fact that you have developed your referencing and citation skills throughout the course of your degree, and therefore you're able to do this now confidently and accurately. It will be important to use the University of Staffordshire Library's Ref Zone to support you with this, and using Cite Them Right will give you examples of what your reference list entries should look like for each of the sources that you're referencing. You can obviously find this via the library webpage. We do have a video on how to use Cite Them Right online. And if you are already very confident at using references, then you may be ready to start considering using referencing management software, such as RefWorks, which is the referencing management software that we support here in the library. We do have a workshop on how to use RefWorks, as well as lots of guides on this via the Ref Zone. After your reference list, you will have your appendix. Appendices contain information that you've not included in the main document. It's not included in the word count, and nor is it marked necessarily. You can present your raw data, for example. Don't summarise it, that's for the main body of the assignment, for your findings and results section. You can include things like blank examples of the questionnaire you sent out, or a transcript of an interview, or the list of interview questions that you set out to ask. Your ethics form can go here as well. You shouldn't put anything into an appendix that hasn't been referred to in the text. Now, a little moment now to consider the time management. You've probably worked out from everything that we've just gone through that this is going to take a long time. This is a large assignment. So you need to think about your time management. Write down all the tasks that you're going to need to do to be able to achieve this, and work out roughly how long you're going to need to do each thing. And then set a date when you want to have completed each of those tasks. There's an example of this on a table on the screen with this process started. Once you've done this, you'll be able to then put that information into a Gantt chart, which will enable you to see which parts of the assignment you should be working on at any given time. For example, this one is for a literature review. You can see some of the tasks on the left-hand side, and then the months the project is running across the top. And then the shaded sections are the tasks that should be being done within each month. You'll notice that some months have got several tasks on the go, so there is overlap. It doesn't mean you finish one and then move on to the next. There's some flexibility about this. There are specific deadlines for certain things, like the research proposal needed to be in on the 15th of November, so there was a set deadline for that. But the others are, this is what I should be doing around this kind of time. Using a Gantt chart and keeping to it will help keep your project on track. A word about searching for literature. You will need to plan a search strategy that identifies the key concepts in the topic, identifies synonyms that relate to those, that will allow you to search systematically and record your results. You can do this via library search, which allows you to search a lot of the databases that are indexed within it, or you can use specific databases, and your level of study may dictate which of those options you use. There is a Planning Your Search Strategy workshop, so we'd strongly recommend you attend that. And there are also lots of library guides and resources available to support you with your research. So start with your module reading list for this assignment. Your lecturers will be presenting you with lots of useful information via your reading list. start with those resources and then move on to library search. We have a dissertation guide, we have a literature review guide and a systematic review guide within the academic skills guide section of the library website. There are workshops to help you, and there's also Sage Research Methods, which is a fantastic resource providing lots of information about how to carry out research. There's also loads of books in the library about this. There's 3 that have been screenshotted on this slide. Search Library Search for research methods, research methodology, research design, to help you find even more. So a reminder to explore our other workshops and our other videos to help you with other aspects of this assignment. We hope you found this video useful.